Good morning, Year 5. I'm recording this on a very warm day. I hope it's a little bit cooler next week when you're watching this. So we're starting with a lovely photo, just because it happens to be on my desktop, of a fly eating a fly. In fact, I think it's eating a mosquito, which is cool. That's a bit prettier, isn't it? This is a red squirrel that we saw when we went to the Lake District last summer. Anyway, so today we're going to start a little bit of a history topic. Now, if you had been staying in school, you would have been studying the Anglo-Saxons. So we're going to start thinking about them, and I'm going to show you to start with one of my favourite websites on the whole wide internet. I just think it's so cool. So without further chat, this is it. What's so cool about it, you might ask? Well, what's cool about it is that it's a timeline of the whole of history. And what we've got is time starting over here with the Big Bang. And you've got some little images here, and actually you can click on those and find out a bit more if you want, which I won't pause for. And this line represents where we are now. And you can see there's a scale at the top there, and we're at 0G. So that means no time ago. And these 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. The GA actually stands for giga annums, annum being Latin for year. So these are giga years, and each one of these, the 0 and then the 1, if I can get it there, represents 1 billion years. Okay, so we are going back to almost 14 billion years, which is quite cool in itself. And so they've tried to capture the whole of time in this one little thing. So you'd think, okay, so this is when the world started. This is when Earth was formed with a Big Bang. So humans come quite soon, don't they? Or do they? And here is one of the coolest things. So up here, I'm going to put the link to this on the PowerPoint on our folders section, so you'll be able to look at this yourself. But here's humanity, so that means when were humans in this? And I'm just going to click on that, and you're going to watch which section of the whole of time humans have been alive for. All right, so this is the whole of time that you're seeing now. We're going to look at the bit where humans have lived. It might even blow your mind. It blows my mind every time, but then that's me. Here we go. It's so tiny. So humans have been around for just a tiny, 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 tiny part of the whole of time. I'm going to zoom out again. Look over here. I can look at cosmos, so that's the same word as cosmic. So that's the whole world. I'm going to scroll back out again, so you can see little humans disappearing. It's just so tiny. And there we are back at the whole world. And in fact, you can't even see where the humans are. Humans are so insignificant in terms of time in the world. Now, you can do various things, like you can look at when life started. That's quite cool. So that's a timeline of life. And in fact, humans will be over here in life, obviously, because we are alive most of the time. And you can, with your mouse wheel, you can scroll into the different parts that you want to scroll into. So there's just something that's pretty cool, and puts human history in whole cosmos history. So right now I'm going to zoom in, as you see, on human history, and we're going to see if we can see where the Vikings are. Not the Vikings. Actually, yes, the Vikings, the Anglo-Saxons, because Anglo-Saxons isn't actually on this, but the Vikings is, and they overlap. So I'm going to try and remember where that is. So there's the Industrial Revolution. That is the Victorian times. Okay. So we should have. I thought it was just up here. Zoom out a little bit. Oh no, it's annoying if I can't find it. Because I did find it a moment ago. There's Greek history, look. What a long period of time it is, and there's Romans overlapping it. Also a really long period of time. So I think what we're looking for is not in the Babylonians. Vikings, there we go. So there's the Vikings. You can see, if I just zoom out a little bit, well after the Greeks, but actually same sort of period as the Romans. Okay, that's enough playing around with that. I could play around with it all day, but I'm going to leave you to have a little go at that. Oh, there's a lizard. What I want to show you is perhaps an easier timeline. So here we go. Here's my little PowerPoint that I've got for you. So this is now looking at British history in a more normal kind of way. And we can see here's Romans in Britain, and here's the Anglo-Saxons and Vikings coming in together. We've then got the Normans, the Tudors, the Georgians, the Victorians, and World War I and II after that. All right, so if you want to have a little look at that, I think it's really important to understand the order in which things happened when we're studying history. So have a good look at that. So let's think about the Anglo-Saxons and who were they? Well, strangely enough, I'm going to read you a little bit of a very famous Anglo-Saxon poem. And you will see, on the one hand, it's really different when you think that we are, most of us, descended from Anglo-Saxons. Most of the people who are, let's say, were here 100 years ago, are Anglo-Saxon. It's your typical white British kind of thing. Now, some people will be descended from Vikings. I know that my husband's family are. My son's a Viking. But I'm Anglo-Saxon with a bit of French. I'm going to read you a little bit of this. I actually studied this when I was at university, and you might be able to pick out some words that you recognise, but you'll look at that and you'll think, crikey, that's how we used to speak in this country. How much it's changed. Listen to this first word. When I say it, you say it. Wait. What does that sound like? Well, to me, it sounds very much like what it means, which is wait. So I won't read you all of this. There's this huge poem called Beowulf, which is really famous. Quait we Gardena in Gardegum, Theodikinga, Thrim Grefrunon, who the Aethelingers Ellen Fremedon, of shall scafing, scathing up threatum, monegum, megthum, meodostula, of their exoda eolas. I'm going to stop there. It's quite cool. And actually down the bottom, I have put a little translation of that if you want to have a look at some point. Moving on. All right, so Anglo-Saxons. We know roughly how long ago they were because we've just looked at that timeline, and you can go back and look at that when you want to. Now, this is a photograph from the air, an aerial view of Sutton Hoo burial ground. Now, Sutton Hoo is just the name of the place that is nearby. And this, can you see all these bumps and things? Somebody saw all this and thought, that's a bit of an odd shape. Why is that hill that shape? And this was, over 100 years ago. And they started to dig it up. And as you probably know, people who dig things up like this are called archaeologists. So the archaeologists started digging up this place near the village called Sutton Hoo, and they found an Anglo-Saxon treasure hoard. Absolutely amazing. And I'm going to show you some images of what they found, and then you are going to do a little bit of work based on that for me. So here is a photograph of them actually doing, so 1939, there you go, not quite 100 years ago. Edith Pretty was the woman who owned the land, and she gave them permission, and she was very interested in what they found. And what they found, I'll show you a better picture of it in a minute, but just to get some idea of scale, they found this huge trench. And what they realised was that it was a ship, and a Viking ship, that had been buried there. So here, this chap, Basil Brown, was one of the main people who was the archaeologist there. Now, this is a much better picture. So we're standing at one end of the ship. And can you see these sort of ribs going across? So they are the wooden strengtheners. And all these little dots are metal rivets that riveted the whole ship together. And they've survived. Most of the wood has rotted away because wood rots quite easily. So you can see all these metal bits holding it together. You can see how huge it is. 27 meters long. That's as long as our playground. You know, it's a huge thing. And I put this picture of the coins there to remind me to tell you that they could date it because of the coins. So they found some coins in there, and the coins had dates on, and so they were able to tell quite accurately when the ship was buried. So what did they find in it? Well, here's a little bit of a drawing of what it was. What they found was that somebody had been buried there with presumably all of his most precious belongings around. Now that might seem an odd thing to do, but in those times that was a traditional thing to do for really wealthy, important people. So they would be buried with all of their favourite belongings, one of which was the ship. So he was buried in his own ship with all the things that were important to him. So shields, we've got swords, we've got buckets, we've got all sorts of things that, and his outfit itself, also really precious. Look, there's a sword lying down there, and you can see that it's been arranged. This helmet, it's been done very carefully by somebody as a sign of respect for his life and the person that he was. Nowadays, it's all in the British Museum like this. So that there's his shield, there's that helmet, so that people could go and see it. But there's also, you can go and visit Sutton Hill itself. Now then, this is how people find out about history. It's not easy. Archaeologists find something, look, they found all of this, and they have to work out what it was. And that's not easy, and we're going to be doing that. We're going to be thinking like archaeologists and trying to find out about what it tells us about those people. So somebody really cleverly has found all these bits, realised that they go together, realised how they fit together, and that this is roughly what it had been. So a musical instrument called a lyre. You pluck these strings to make the music. So archaeology can be quite messy. History can be quite messy. It's a little bit of a guessing game where we have to read between the lines and think, oh, I wonder whether, and this might be that. I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. So, crazy. So this is just some little tiny bits of material left from all those years ago, which is kept very safely in a box at the British Museum in London. Now this is one of my favourite pieces. I think it's so beautiful. So this was a buckle from the man's belt, and he was wearing it when he was buried. And there they are actually finding it and digging it up. And this is still one of the most precious Anglo-Saxon artefacts, an artefact being a thing that has been found. And that's the back of it. It's actually, can you see down there? It's got a hinge. It actually opens up. It's beautifully made. And it's made out of gold. So you can see here some detail of the decoration, so cleverly done. And they're showing you how the back opens. It's got a clever little lock. What else was found? So this was part of, he had like a pouch at his side, and this part is the hinged lid of that pouch. There's the buckle, and these were parts of his shoulder decoration. And it'll show you here some of what he was wearing. All right. So this is roughly what people think he might have looked like, depending on which sort of set of things he was wearing, according to historians. So what you're going to do is you're going to choose one of these items, one of these artifacts. You could choose the shield, you could choose this. There'll be some images for you to look at in the folders. You could choose this beautiful thing, any of these in fact, and I want you to think about what that tells you about the Anglo-Saxons. So I'm going to go myself onto this one, and I'm going to talk through that and what it might look like. So personally, I would like to start with the image in the center of the page, but you might not have a printer. That's fine. You can just do this. You looking at the picture and then writing some notes. I'm thinking, well, what is it that I can see? Well, I can see that it's made out of gold. What does that tell me? Does it tell me that it's made out of gold? It tells me an awful lot. It tells me that it belonged to somebody rich. Yes? Okay, because it's always been a precious metal. And if you have somebody who's rich, you probably have rich people and poor people, don't you? Something quite interesting to think about, because if you think about early history, when you've got, I don't know, the cavemen, you don't have rich and poor, they're just all the same. So it tells you something about that society, about Anglo-Saxons, if you have rich and poor. Okay? And this person was rich, so he was probably important, and we know that too because of the burial with the ship. That in itself wouldn't happen if they were unless they were important. So he's important, and he likes to show off his status. So he likes to show off how important he is. He doesn't want to just have that. It's for display, isn't it? I might put display. So we can tell already, just from the fact that it's made out of a precious metal like gold, that he was somebody who was probably quite proud of his achievements and proud of his wealth. So I'm just going to put the question up there, which is, what does this tell us about the Anglo-Saxons? All right, so you could tell us anything with all sorts that you could find. So what else? Well, the other thing that I noticed is that it's very, very finely made. I couldn't make it. And think how much more sophisticated our society is now. So it's, I would say, fine metalwork. Now, what does that tell me? Well, one of the things that it tells me is that this wouldn't have been made by the man who wore it, would it? They must have had people who work, can't spell gold, people who work with gold, which I would call a goldsmith, somebody who works with gold. And that means that they had people who had special trades. So they didn't all do the same thing. They had people who worked with metal. They had people who went out on ships. They had people who baked bread. They had those sort of trades. And that might seem obvious, but it's, again, a sign that it's quite a sophisticated, complicated society. What else does that show me? Well, when I think about it from a science point of view, I think that shows that they could extract gold because, as you might know, you don't find lumps of gold lying around. You find it hidden in other, what's the word? Not metals, minerals, and rocks and things like that. So they could extract it. That means they had lots of heat. That means they could take the gold out. And again, that tells me something that they were very sophisticated from that point of view. Don't know quite why I did that. All right. Why can I not go back to that? That's annoying. I can. Okay, so they could extract gold from quartz. And they must have had some sort of a forge to do that. You know what I mean by a forge? So really, really hot. And that's quite clever. So they knew quite a bit of science as well. So fine metalwork tells me that. They must also have had special tools. They weren't just making this with their hands, were they? They had tools. Again, it all builds an idea of what a sophisticated society they were. Now then, what else does it tell me? Well, I'm going to start to look at the actual image now. And the image, you can see on the close-up, but possibly not on this, is lots of snakes. they're all intertwined. These are actually little snakes, and lots of them are eating their own tails, so they're all tied in together, sort of. That wasn't meant to happen. Writhing around almost. So there are some snakes, and there are some bird heads. And I'm wondering whether that's some sort of a symbol for something. You know, when one thing represents something else, like quite often a white dove is used to represent peace or hope or something like that. Could it be a symbol? Are these linked to religion, maybe? And at this point, you can see I'm feeling a bit less sure of my ground. I don't know. This I'm confident about. I can see that must be the case. This I'm confident about. Here, I'm just thinking, I wonder whether that was linked to some religion. I don't know. But snakes actually in Christianity are quite important, aren't they? Or maybe, so I'm just going to put a question mark there to show that it's a wonder, and you can do that too. Or maybe it was just that animals were just important to them because of the way they lived, perhaps quite close to nature. So maybe it was that. Maybe it was religious. I'm tempted to think that it was a little bit religious. What else could I say? I might just finish up by asking some questions, because there are some things, a bit like in the science that you've just done, where actually the questions at the end can lead you to interesting places. I want to know, what did he keep inside? What was it for? Yes, it was a belt buckle, but why did they? Because belt buckles these days, we don't have, they don't hinge open, do they? What did he keep in there? I want to know whether it was religious. Don't know how I'd find out, but I would like to know that. What else would I like to know? I would like to know what the belt was made out of. Was the belt leather? Because they'd have had access to leather, wouldn't they? But that would have rotted away, so we wouldn't have that left. I'd like to know if there are other examples of this sort of buckle that anybody's found anywhere else. It was the only one that was found at Sutton Hoo, but maybe there were others elsewhere. All right, I'm going to stop now because you've been listening for some time. But all I want you to do is have a look at these images, choose one, ideally two. It would be really nice if you could do two really different ones, so that you could really show the depth of your thinking. And I want you to think about, what does this tell us? What is it? What is it made from? Who might have used it? What does that tell us about what Anglo-Saxon society was like? When I say society, I mean what sort of community of people it was. All right? You don't have to have the answers. Like me, you could just think, I wonder whether. And you could write it out like this, preferably slightly neater than I've managed to do with my tablet. But any way you want to put that together, I want to hear your wonders, I want to hear your thinking, I want you to be thinking like an archaeologist. You've just dug this out of the ground. What does this tell me about history? Okay. Hope you enjoy it too. And then we'll build on this next week to do a little bit more about the Anglo-Saxons. All right. Looking forward to seeing it.